My mother demanded I sell my grandfather's $450,000 lake house to fund my sister's fifth failed business, so I put it in a trust that legally bans them forever. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Initial post. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am at 32, dealing with family drama that's making me question everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me. I'm Michael, and this is about the lake house my grandfather left me, my mother Patricia's relentless campaign to make me sell it, and my sister Emily's failing business that somehow became my responsibility to save. Let me start with some background. My grandfather, Thomas, was the kind of man who built everything with his own hands. He wasn't wealthy by any means, worked as a carpenter for 45 years, but he was smart with his money. Back in 1978, he bought a piece of land by Lake Superior for what would be pocket change today. Over the next decade, he built a modest but beautiful lake house there, doing all the work himself during weekends and vacations. That lake house became the heart of our family. Every summer, we'd spend weeks there. Grandpa taught me to fish off the dock he built, showed me how to repair the wooden siding when storms damaged it, and shared stories about his own father while we sat by the fireplace he'd constructed stone by stone. My sister Emily came to maybe 3 of these summers. She was always too busy with dance camps or friend trips. When Grandpa's health started declining 5 years ago, I was the one who drove him to appointments. I was the one who helped him sort through his papers, fix things around his primary residence, and made sure he took his medications. Emily visited maybe twice a year, usually around gift-giving holidays. Mom Patricia helped when she could, but she lived 2 states away and had her own life. Grandpa passed away 8 months ago. The will reading was straightforward. He left his main house to be sold and divided among his 3 children, my mom and my 2 uncles, some bonds to each grandchild, and the lake house specifically to me. The will stated, and I quote, "To my grandson Michael, who understood what this place meant to me and will preserve what I built with my own hands." At first, everyone seemed fine with it. Mom even said it made sense since I'd spent so much time there with him. But that changed about 3 months ago when Emily announced she was starting a boutique marketing agency and needed investors. Emily has started 4 businesses in the past 6 years. A jewelry line that lasted 8 months. A food truck that she sold at a massive loss after 3 months because the hours were crazy. A subscription box service that never got past the planning stage. And a yoga studio that closed when she realized she'd have to wake up early to teach morning classes. Each time, someone in the family bailed her out, usually our parents. This time, she needs $200,000 to launch her marketing agency. She's already gotten $50,000 from our parents, maxing out their home equity line of credit. She got another $30,000 from our Uncle David. But she needs more, and suddenly, everyone's looking at me and my lake house. The property is worth approximately $450,000 now. The land alone has skyrocketed in value, and the house, while modest, is in excellent condition because I've maintained it meticulously. Mom called me last month with her proposal. "Michael, honey, you need to think about the family. Emily's business could really take off this time. She's learned from her mistakes. If you sell the lake house, you could give her the money she needs and still have plenty left over. You can buy another vacation property later." I said no immediately. She didn't take it well. "That's incredibly selfish, Michael. Your grandfather would want the family to help each other." "Grandpa left the lake house to me specifically because he knew I'd take care of it," I responded. "If he wanted it sold to fund Emily's ventures, he would have arranged that." The conversation devolved from there. Mom accused me of being jealous of Emily's entrepreneurial spirit. She said I was hoarding family resources, and that my steady but boring job as a software engineer meant I didn't understand the struggles of starting a business. 2 weeks later, Emily called me directly. She started sweet, talking about how the marketing agency was her dream and how she'd learned so much from her past attempts. When I remained firm, her tone shifted. "You know, Michael, that lake house should have been left to all the grandchildren. It's not fair that you got it just because you had more free time to hang out with Grandpa." Free time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I used my vacation days to take him to chemotherapy. I spent weekends helping him when he couldn't maintain the property anymore. "Well, some of us were building our futures instead of living in the past," she snapped. "That house is just sitting there empty most of the year while I'm trying to create something meaningful." "Your 5th business in 6 years is meaningful? Which part? When you abandon it in 6 months or when Mom and Dad go further into debt bailing you out?" She hung up on me, but the campaign didn't stop. Mom started calling daily. She'd alternate between guilt trips about family loyalty and promises that Emily would pay me back with interest once the business succeeded. She even suggested I could be a silent partner in the agency. Then came the family dinner last Sunday. I should have known it was an ambush when Mom insisted everyone come, even cousins who lived hours away. Halfway through dinner, she stood up with a glass of wine and started a speech about how families support each other and how Grandpa's true legacy was the love between us, not physical properties. Then Emily stood up with a whole presentation, literally a PowerPoint she connected to the TV, about her business plan and how the Lakehouse sale could transform the family's financial future. She'd even calculated how much each family member could get if I sold and distributed the money. I sat through 20 minutes of this before standing up myself. The Lakehouse isn't for sale. It will never be for sale. Grandpa left it to me to preserve, not to liquidate for Emily's latest scheme. This discussion is over. Mom's face went red. Michael Thomas, you will not speak to your sister that way. We're trying to have a rational discussion about family assets. It's not a family asset. It's my asset. Left to me specifically. And I'm done discussing it. I left immediately, but the text started before I even got home. Emily called me disgustingly selfish. Mom said I was breaking her heart. Even my Aunt Jennifer, who usually stays out of drama, texted that I should consider the bigger picture. The only support came from my cousin Brandon, who texted, "Good for you." Grandpa knew what he was doing. Emily's burned through enough family money. That was yesterday. This morning, I woke up to an email from Emily with the subject line, "Business proposal. Please read." She's offering me 25% equity in her company in exchange for a $200,000 investment from the Lakehouse sale proceeds. She promises I'll make my money back within 2 years. I haven't responded, but I did something else. I called my lawyer, the same one who helped execute Grandpa's will. We're meeting tomorrow to discuss putting the Lakehouse into an irrevocable trust with specific provisions that it cannot be sold or leveraged for loans for the next 20 years, and if something happens to me, it goes to the local historical society, not to any family member. I'm also considering sending a formal cease and desist letter if the harassment continues. I've been documenting everything, every call, text, and email. My girlfriend Sarah, who's been incredibly supportive through this, suggested I might need a restraining order if Emily shows up at my house again like she did last week, banging on the door at 11 p.m., demanding we talk like adults. The part that hurts most is that they're destroying exactly what Grandpa valued. He didn't care about money or business ventures. He cared about hard work, preservation, and the simple joy of a place where family could gather without agenda or drama. Every time I drive up to the Lakehouse now, I think about him building it board by board, and I know I'm making the right choice. But I also feel incredibly alone. Except for Brandon and Sarah, everyone thinks I'm the villain in this story. Mom keeps saying I'm choosing property over family, but isn't she the one doing that by making my relationship with them contingent on selling? I know this is long, but I needed to get it out. I'm meeting with the lawyer tomorrow, and I'm not backing down. That Lakehouse is staying in my hands, even if it costs me my relationship with my mother and sister. Grandpa trusted me with his legacy, and I won't let him down. Update 1. The legal protection. It's been 3 weeks since my initial post, and things have escalated in ways I never imagined. I met with my lawyer, Robert, the day after posting, and we've put ironclad protections in place. But the family's reaction has been nuclear. First, the legal stuff. Robert helped me establish the Thomas Legacy Trust, named after my grandfather. The Lakehouse is now held in this irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee and beneficiary during my lifetime. The terms are specific. The property cannot be sold, mortgaged, or used as collateral for any loan for 20 years. If I die, it goes to the local historical society with provisions that it must be maintained as a historical property and used for educational purposes about the region's architectural heritage. The kicker. We added a clause that if any family member attempts legal action to contest or break the trust, they're automatically excluded from ever using the property, even as a guest. Robert called it the nuclear option, but after what's happened, I'm glad we included it. The trust was finalized last Tuesday. I informed the family via group email on Wednesday, thinking it would end the discussion. I was wrong. Mom called me within an hour, screaming so loudly that Sarah could hear her from across the room. She called me vindictive, cruel, and said I was spitting on my grandfather's grave. The irony of that last one seemed lost on her. "You've literally stolen from your sister's future," she yelled. "That trust is just spite." "The trust is protection," I replied calmly. "Protection of Grandpa's legacy from exactly this kind of pressure." She hung up, but that was just the beginning. Thursday morning, Emily showed up at my workplace. Security had to escort her out after she caused a scene in the lobby, screaming that I was destroying her dreams, and that she'd make sure everyone knew what kind of person I was. My manager, thankfully, was understanding when I explained the situation, but it was mortifying. That evening, Emily started a social media campaign. She posted on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn about how her narcissistic brother was hoarding family wealth while she was trying to build something meaningful. She conveniently left out her failed business history and the trust fund Grandpa left her that she burned through in 2 years. The posts got dozens of comments from extended family and family friends. Most were supportive of her, saying things like, "Family should help family," and "Money isn't everything." But then Brandon started responding with receipts, screenshots of Emily's past GoFundMe campaigns for her failed businesses, photos from the 3 times she visited Grandpa in 5 years versus the hundreds of photos of me there, and even a screenshot of a text where Emily called the Lakehouse that musty old shack just 2 years ago. My uncle David, who'd given Emily $30,000, privately messaged me, "I'm starting to see why Thomas left the house just to you. Stay strong." Then came Friday, the day that changed everything. Mom and Emily showed up at my house with a man they introduced as Thomas, ironically sharing my grandfather's name, a family mediator they'd hired. They wanted to have an intervention about my addiction to control. I refused to let them in and called my lawyer immediately. Robert advised me to record the interaction, which I did. The mediator started by saying that property disputes can tear families apart, and that he was there to help us find a mutually beneficial solution. "There's no dispute," I said through the door's security chain. "I own the property, it's in a trust, and this conversation is over." Emily lost it. She started pounding on the door, screaming that I was ruining her life, that she'd already told investors she had the capital, and that I'd be responsible when her business failed. "You've already told investors you have money you don't have?" I asked, recording everything. "That sounds like fraud, Emily." The mediator quickly ushered them away after that, probably realizing the legal liability he was walking into. Saturday brought a new development. Mom had convinced her brother, my Uncle Richard, to call me. Richard is a retired judge, and I'd always respected him. He listened to my side and then said something that surprised me. "Michael, your grandfather talked to me about this before he passed. He said he was leaving the Lakehouse to you because you were the only one who understood its value beyond dollars. He specifically said he didn't want it sold to fund what he called Emily's adventures." Stand your ground, son. That validation meant everything, but it also made me angry. Mom knew Grandpa's wishes and was still trying to override them. Sunday, I decided to be proactive. I sent a formal cease and desist letter to both Mom and Emily, drafted by Robert. It stated that any further harassment, including showing up at my home or workplace, would result in a restraining order. It also mentioned that Emily's public statements about me could be considered defamation and that I was prepared to pursue legal action if they continued. The response was swift. Emily blocked me on all social media, but not before posting one last rant about how I was threatening my own family with legal action over money. Mom sent a long text about how I'd broken her heart and that she couldn't believe she'd raised such a cold, calculating son. But here's the interesting part. Emily's potential investors apparently saw her social media meltdown. Brandon forwarded me a message from one of them who'd reached out to him, saying they were reconsidering their involvement, given Emily's emotional instability and questionable judgment. Yesterday, my Aunt Jennifer called. She'd been neutral until now, but she said something that stuck with me: "Your mom is embarrassed. She's been telling her friends for months about Emily's new business and how successful it would be. She sees your refusal as a public humiliation. This isn't about the money anymore, it's about her pride." That helped me understand, but it doesn't change anything. I've started spending weekends at the Lakehouse now, something I couldn't do when the drama was at its peak. I'm working on restoring the dock, just like Grandpa taught me. Sarah comes with me, and we've been cataloging all of Grandpa's handwritten notes about the construction, planning to create a historical record for the Historical Society. Brandon visited last weekend, and we found Grandpa's old toolbox in the workshop, still labeled with his initials. Inside was a note he'd apparently left there years ago, "For whoever cares enough to keep building. I'm keeping building, Grandpa, even if I have to do it alone." Update 2. The family fracture. It's been 2 months since the cease and desist letter, and the family dynamics have completely shifted. Some relationships are destroyed, others have surprisingly strengthened, and Emily's house of cards has started collapsing. First, the immediate aftermath of the legal letter. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 weeks, then sent a formal-sounding email saying she was respecting my wishes for distance, but that I'd created an irreparable rift in the family. She ended with, "I hope the property brings you the happiness that family obviously couldn't." Emily, on the other hand, went scorched earth. Despite blocking me on social media, she started a blog called When Family Fails, where she wrote thinly veiled posts about toxic siblings and financial abuse within families. She never used my name, but anyone who knew us could figure it out. Each post got more unhinged, including one where she claimed I'd manipulated a dying man to get the inheritance. That post was her mistake. My uncle Richard, the retired judge, sent her a stern warning about defamation laws. He also sent me a copy, adding, "I've told Patricia she needs to get Emily professional help. This isn't normal behavior, even for a disappointed person." Meanwhile, I've been living my life. Sarah and I have been spending every weekend at the Lakehouse, and we've made incredible progress on restoration. We found old blueprints Grandpa had drawn by hand, showing his plans for expansions he never got to complete. We've started working on one, a screened-in porch he designed for my grandmother before she passed. But the real drama started 6 weeks ago when Emily's business began imploding before it even launched. Remember those investors she'd told that she already had capital? Well, they started asking for proof of funds. When she couldn't provide it, they pulled out. Then, the friend she'd partnered with for the agency discovered Emily had been using their shared business credit card for personal expenses, apparently planning to pay it back with the Lakehouse money she'd assumed she'd get. The partner not only dissolved the partnership but also threatened legal action. Emily needed a lawyer, and guess who she expected to pay for it? When Mom called me asking if I'd at least help with legal fees, I simply reminded her of the cease and desist letter and hung up. That's when the extended family started choosing sides. My Aunt Margaret, Mom's sister, called me selfish and said I was letting pride destroy the family. But my Uncle David sent me a check for $5,000 with a note for the Lakehouse restoration. Thomas would be proud. I sent it back with thanks, saying I didn't need the money, just the support. He framed my return letter and posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Integrity looks like this." The real surprise came from my cousins. Brandon organized what he called a Lakehouse work weekend. 7 cousins I hadn't heard from in years showed up with tools, supplies, and their families. We rebuilt the deck, repainted the exterior, and shared stories about Grandpa that I'd never heard. My cousin Jessica brought her daughter, who's studying architecture. The girl was fascinated by Grandpa's hand-drawn plans and asked if she could use them for her thesis project on vernacular architecture and family legacy. I immediately agreed and gave her access to all of Grandpa's documents. During that weekend, the truth about Emily started coming out. Cousin Aaron mentioned that Emily had hit him up for a $10,000 loan 3 years ago that she'd never paid back. Jessica revealed that Emily had tried to sell her a spot as a founding investor in not 1 but 3 of her previous businesses. Brandon's wife mentioned that Emily had even created a fake charity fundraiser once, claiming it was for sick children but keeping the money for her yoga studio. "We all knew what Thomas was doing when he left you the house," Aaron said. "He told me once that you were the only one who saw it as more than property. Emily sees everything as a potential liquidation." That weekend was healing, but it also highlighted the family divide. Mom found out about the gathering from Facebook photos and sent a group text, "I see you're all choosing sides. Remember this when you need family support." Brandon responded, "We are supporting family. The family member who's preserving our grandfather's legacy, not trying to sell it." 3 weeks ago, Emily's situation got worse. The business partner filed a formal complaint with the police about the misused funds. It turns out Emily had charged almost $15,000 in personal expenses, planning to pay it back with her Lakehouse windfall. Since she'd explicitly told the partner she had an inheritance coming, it's being investigated as fraud. Mom called me crying, begging me to help Emily. "She could go to jail, Michael. Is that what you want? Your sister in jail?" "I want my sister to face the consequences of her actions," I replied. "Just like any adult should. She's only in this position because you wouldn't help her." "No, she's in this position because she committed fraud. She spent money that wasn't hers based on an assumption about money that also wasn't hers." Mom hung up and hasn't called since. Last week, I got a certified letter from Emily's lawyer. She's trying to contest the trust, claiming undue influence and mental incapacity regarding Grandpa's will. Robert laughed when he saw it. She just triggered the clause that bars her from ever accessing the property. This is the legal equivalent of shooting herself in the foot. He filed a response that included the trust's no contest clause and asked for Emily to pay my legal fees for the frivolous lawsuit. He also included affidavits from Richard and 3 other family members confirming Grandpa's mental clarity and his explicit wishes for the property. Yesterday, I received an unexpected call from Patricia, Mom's best friend since college. She said Mom is devastated, but not for the reasons I might think. Your mother invested her identity in Emily's success, Patricia explained. Every time Emily failed, your mom saw it as her own failure as a parent. She thought this business would finally vindicate all the support she's given Emily over the years. Your refusal to sell the lake house isn't just about money. It's about her having to finally admit that Emily is a serial failure and she enabled it. It was insightful but didn't change anything. I've accepted that my relationship with Mom might never recover. Emily is facing potential criminal charges, and I won't intervene. But I've also gained something unexpected, a closer relationship with cousins I'd barely known and a deeper understanding of what Grandpa was really leaving me. Not just a house, but a touchstone for the family members who value what really matters. This weekend, Sarah and I are hosting Thanksgiving at the lake house for anyone who wants to come, except those who've tried to force its sale. So far, 12 family members have confirmed, including Uncle Richard, who's bringing his famous bourbon turkey. Grandpa always said the lake house was meant for family. He just knew that not everyone who shares your blood shares your values. Final update. 4 months later. I wasn't planning to update again, but so many people have asked for closure, and honestly, the ending to this saga is more poetic than I could have imagined. Emily's business never launched. After the fraud investigation, her partner sued her personally, and she had to declare bankruptcy. The criminal charges were dropped in exchange for a plea deal where she paid restitution and did community service, but her reputation in the business community is destroyed. No one will partner with her now, and she's working as an assistant at a real estate firm, ironically helping other people sell their properties. The lawsuit against Grandpa's will was dismissed with prejudice, meaning she can never challenge it again. The judge's ruling was scathing, calling it a transparent attempt to override the clear wishes of the deceased for personal gain. Emily also had to pay my legal fees, $12,000 that Mom ended up covering because Emily couldn't. That payment seemed to break something in Mom. She sent me a letter, an actual handwritten letter, 2 months ago. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was close. She wrote about how she'd always felt guilty that Emily struggled while I succeeded, how she tried to compensate by supporting Emily's dreams no matter how unrealistic. She admitted that she'd known, deep down, that Grandpa was right to leave me the house but couldn't face what that said about Emily. She ended with, "I chose the wrong child to protect." You never needed protecting. Emily needed boundaries, not enablement. I failed you both in different ways. I haven't responded yet. I'm not ready. But it's a start. The restraining order threat was never needed. After the legal fees judgment, Emily and Mom have kept their distance. I hear updates through other family members. Emily is in therapy now, supposedly working on her patterns of entitlement and failure. Mom has started therapy too, dealing with what her therapist apparently calls codependent enabling. Meanwhile, the lake house has become what Grandpa always envisioned. We finished the screened porch, and I found a photo from 1992 of Grandpa and Grandma sitting in the exact spot where he'd planned to build it. We framed it and hung it in the completed porch. The cousins' work weekend has become a tradition. We've done 3 more since then, each one bringing more family members. Last month, even some of Grandpa's old co-workers showed up, sharing stories about how he'd talk about the lake house during lunch breaks, sketching improvements on napkins. The biggest surprise came from Uncle Richard. He's been digitizing all of Grandpa's construction notes and blueprints, creating a detailed history of the property. He discovered that Grandpa had written journals during the building process, documenting not just the technical aspects but his thoughts and hopes for the family's future. One entry, dated July 1983, reads, "I hope someday my grandchildren will understand that what I'm building here isn't about the structure. It's about having a place where family can always return, where the important things are remembered, and where the noise of the world gets quiet enough to hear what matters." Another, from 1991, Michael, age 7, helped me install the kitchen windows today. He asked why we were being so careful with each measurement. I told him that anything worth building is worth building right. He nodded like he understood. I think he did. Reading that destroyed me in the best way. Sarah and I got engaged last month. I proposed at the lake house, on the dock Grandpa built, at sunset. Brandon was hiding in the bushes taking photos, with permission, and Sarah's yes echoed across the lake. We're planning to have the wedding there next summer. When we announced the engagement, Mom texted, "Congratulations. I hope I'm invited." I responded, "Family is always welcome at the lake house, as long as they come with love, not agenda." She hearted the message. We'll see. Emily hasn't contacted me at all, but Brandon told me she asked about the engagement. When he mentioned the wedding would be at the lake house, she apparently said, "It's a beautiful spot for it." Grandpa would have loved that. It's the first time she's acknowledged the lake house's value beyond money. The most beautiful development has been the Grandpa Thomas workshop we've started. Once a month, We invite local kids to learn basic carpentry and construction skills at the lake house. We use Grandpa's tools and teach the way he taught: patience, precision, and pride in your work. The Historical Society is documenting it as part of their educational program for when they eventually inherit the property. Last week, a 10-year-old girl named Sophie built her first birdhouse using Grandpa's hand drill. She was so proud she cried. Her grandmother, watching from the porch, said, "This is what Thomas would have wanted. Not money changing hands, but skills and values being passed down." She's right. And that's why I fought so hard to keep it. The family reunions have been the best part. We've hosted 3 now, and each one gets bigger. The rule is simple: no business talk, no asking for money, no drama. Just family, food, and the lake. Even some of Mom's siblings who initially criticized me have come around. Aunt Margaret apologized last month, saying she'd been wrong and that she could see now what I was protecting. "It's not just a house," she said, looking at old photos of Grandpa building it. "It's his life's work." His statement about what matters. The last reunion had 43 people. We cooked Grandpa's famous fish fry recipe, told stories until midnight, and Brandon's kids caught their first fish off the dock. Multiple people cried when Uncle Richard read from Grandpa's journals about his hopes for the family's future. I've started my own journal, documenting the restoration and these gatherings. Someday, when the Historical Society takes over, they'll have the complete story, not just of a house built by hand, but of a family that almost lost its way over money and found its way back through preserving what actually mattered. Emily's name came up at the last reunion. Cousin Jessica said she'd seen her at a coffee shop, looking healthier than she had in years. "She asked me to tell you she's sorry," Jessica said. "Not for the money stuff specifically, but for not understanding what the lake house meant until it was too late." I don't know if Emily and I will ever repair our relationship. The trust's no contest clause means she can never legally access the property, even as my guest, unless I modify the trust, which I won't. But maybe someday, we can have coffee and talk about something other than money and property. Maybe. Mom has started coming to the reunions, quietly, staying on the edges but participating. She brought Grandpa's favorite beer to the last one and left it on the dock where he used to sit. It's progress. The lake house stands stronger than ever. We've restored every inch of it now, using Grandpa's original techniques and materials wherever possible. It's become a pilgrimage site of sorts for the family. Cousins bring their kids to learn swimming where we learned, teenagers bring guitars for bonfires like we had, and the older generation sits on the porch telling the same stories Grandpa told us. I was cleaning out the last of the workshop boxes last week and found one final note from Grandpa, tucked inside his level. It said, "A man's legacy isn't what he leaves behind, but what he inspires others to preserve. Build well, preserve better, and remember that the most important things in life aren't things at all." I'm framing that note and hanging it in the main room, where everyone who enters will see it. It's the perfect summary of why I fought so hard and why I'd do it again. The lake house isn't just preserved, it's alive, filled with the family Grandpa actually wanted there. The ones who understand that love isn't measured in dollar signs and that some things are too valuable to sell. Emily was wrong when she accused me of living in the past. I'm not living in the past. I'm preserving it for the future. There's a difference, and Grandpa knew I'd understand it. That's why he chose me.